Hello and welcome. This is Aaron Eggman with Character Formation Coaching, a Christian mind-body transformational coaching technique. Today I am talking, we're in our Catalyze series talking about character structure separation. Again, I wanted to say thank you to Dr. Townsend and Scott Macon for really pioneering this character plus competency model. And so I'm tapping in from a lot of their work, which is right here. You can see the competence and character growth path. That Dr. Townsend created. So there's the fruit, and this is our personal issues, our difficulties with people, our relationships, or our performance issues. That's where we feel pain, and what often brings us to start working to address certain issues in our life. If we need to go to the root, which is aspects of different character. We talked about attachment last week. This week we're talking about separation, and the next 2 weeks or the next 2 sessions we're going to be talking about integration and adulthood. So separation is like our no muscle. We'll define it here in just a second. And we grow in an atmosphere of grace, truth, and time. And so why should we learn character structure, and why should we do this studying? It's because it gives us a target and it helps us to know what is healthy and what is not. What are we going for? What is healthy developmentally? And first year of our life, we learn to bond and connect, and then the second year of our life, we learn to be different or to separate. And so we want to make sure that we have a correct ability to diagnose our issues. And so character structure helps us to know where we're deficient, which then empowers us to know how to grow. And so let's define separation. So separation is defined as the ability to be different from others, to say yes and to say no, or to give a wholehearted yes. But in order to give a wholehearted yes, we have to have the freedom to say no. So to maintain boundaries, and to emotionally regulate anger. And so right here we have boundaries. What are boundaries? Boundaries are personal property lines, or they are who we are and what we own, and then what we don't own. So what as a human being is within our boundaries, or within our, what do we need to own? We need to own our emotions, our attitudes, our beliefs, our behaviors, our choices, our values. No one else can own these things. These are for us. Our limits, that's like what we allow, what we don't allow. Our resources, our giftings, our thoughts, our desires, our love. These are only things that we can own. No one else is responsible for them. This is what we are responsible for. And so anything that fall in these categories are things that we need to own. And if we're having issues in them, for us to own and to get the help that we need. And so we're going to be talking about different separation hiding patterns, and those are what we do to avoid defining ourselves or respecting someone else's boundaries, again, in these areas. So here's the deficit. So if you are character deficient in separation, then you may be boundaryless. And boundaryless means you don't have an ability to say no to other people face to face, like say it and then hold it. And so no means no, and you can say it in relationships to other people. Or you might be boundary busting. Boundary busting means you have a very difficult time hearing no from other people. So when you ask someone to do something and they don't give you a positive answer, you continue to try to change their answer. And you don't want to be different from others, nor do you like others being different from you. You have a strong need to be liked and to please others. You hate conflict or disappointing others. You may feel obligated to say yes to do something. And instead of saying no to people in your life, you will feel angry, although you're probably not in touch with it, at others for asking in the first place. So there begins to be like a passive aggressive anger. Again, you might not even be able to, you won't actually be able to name, like, I feel angry. Those deficient in separation either cannot feel and name anger, or their anger is explosive and it's always feeling strong anger. People say no to you, you kind of get explosively angry. So you don't know where you begin or other ends. So you might have others take responsibility for any of these aspects: emotions, limits, attitudes, resources, the list right here. Or you might expect other people to, like, so it can be blame, or it can be you just have a difficult time knowing what is you and what's another person. You can take on others' offenses, their emotions of others, and see either you do that, taking on the emotions of others, or you might see others as extensions of yourself. And since you have difficulties feeling and dealing with the emotion anger, and cannot recognize what anger feels like in the body, you may feel helpless and at the mercy of others. You may feel like a victim, and have a sense that events are happening to you, or you may have a strong desire to be taking care of others. So often, instead of owning and dealing with things that you want to say no, you might avoid, or if you're feeling anger, you might avoid or act out behind the scenes. And yeah, so these are different things, aspects of a deficiency in this area. And so then we also, when we talk about boundaries, when we're defining who we are and who we're not, we need to know what areas that we can set boundaries on. We can set boundaries on people's touch, or how we touch others. We can set boundaries on the words that we allow spoken to us, or the words we speak, how close we live to someone, or what kind of time that we spend with someone. Emotional distance is how we allow ourselves to feel towards another person, or our warmth, or how we connect with them. Who we choose to spend more time with and who we choose to spend less time with. And then also consequences. If this continues, then I will blank. And so all of these are boundaries, and we set boundaries on ourselves. We don't try to get others to be different. We set boundaries on our own attitudes, on our own behaviors, on our own thoughts, on our own what we do, on our own. So we very much have ownership, not trying to say, well, others can't. Like, we set boundaries on what we allow, what we don't allow, and this is for us, not to try to change others, but to allow ours, for us to remain emotionally regulated and to feel and deal. It's about you, not about changing another person. And so Galatians 5:6 or 6:5 says each one should carry his own load. And so boundaries are about carrying your own load, knowing what is your load, what is another person's load. And of course, this is in Galatians, it actually talked about above. We should carry one another's burdens, and in this way fulfill the law of Christ. And so the carry one another's burdens is also part of love, but we also need to know what is ours to carry and what is others to carry. And Dr. Townsend, in his book Boundaries, really talks about the Greek words here, and the load versus the each person should, in this one, each person should carry his own load. Kind of talks about like a personal backpack or a knapsack, something that we carry and what we're responsible for, versus we should carry each other's burdens. The burdens carry each other's burdens, being like boulders, giant boulders that we cannot carry alone. So we are there for others when they need help, and that's Christ-likeness, but also it's Christ-likeness to own and to know what is ours to carry and no one else's. So I have a case study here to really bring some of this home, and just to kind of see what a deficiency in a separation could look like. So Fred's parents were boundary resistant, meaning they had a hard time hearing no, and they also thought that anger was ungodly emotion. So it was like, just their spirituality didn't have a place for the emotion of anger. We talked about anger being an emotion that says, I don't like what's happening here. And adaptive action tendency is to push back, or to need to say no or to push back. So Fred never learned to say no, and although he would said yes, he sought other ways of getting out of obligations, secretly harboring anger. He never learned to say yes from a place of freedom because he always had felt forced to obey his parents. As an adult, Fred felt resentment towards his wife when she would ask him to do something, because he never learned to negotiate his desires. And that wasn't just his wife; that would also be uh, other people in his life, at church or anywhere else, where it was like he wanted to say no, to something, but he didn't feel the freedom. He didn't know that he had the power to say no or to say, and so uh, so then there was passive aggressiveness. He used passive aggressiveness to protect himself from feeling anger, and so he would have been a pre-level 1, Fred. So yeah, we have different levels here. You can be pre-level 1, level 1.5, blah blah blah. That's all possible. So here at a level 1, you know what you like and what you dislike. You can own opinions and express them, and you start building a no muscle, being able to notice when you're beginning to feel anger. Level 2, you're free to say no so that you can give a wholehearted yes in significant relationships. And you're able to feel and deal with the emotion anger inside of yourself. And so, yeah, you can emotionally regulate anger. And then level 3 says you can express anger and contain others' angers in real time. And you're able to confront toxicity when it's appropriate. All right. Separation hiding patterns. So these hiding patterns are what you do instead of saying no or saying yes, or having the freedom to say no, or being able to give a wholehearted yes. Or if we don't want to be different from others, we might use one of these. Or if we're feeling anger, we could do one of these things. So projection is you look upset when really, like, you see somebody else being upset all the time, but really you just don't know how to see yourself to feel upset inside of yourself. You don't know how to feel anger inside of yourself. So you see other people and you think other people are angry when really it's you, your emotion coming up inside. I love that we are exactly the same, desires intimacy without separateness. Have you ever heard someone say, like, love has no boundaries? That is a very boundaryless statement. And it's this interjection just meaning, yeah, they want like this intimacy without separation. Yeah. Splitting, if you're angry with me, you hate me. And so it's like someone's angry, you think that they, yeah, keeps loves and limits separate. Perceived omnipotence, I can make you happy or sad. So you actually think that you have the power over somebody else's emotions. And just like you don't, your boundaries are skewed. Self-attacking, that was so stupid of me, directs anger and aggression at self. Often if you have a angry voice inside, often you're feeling anger and you need to express it in a relationship, or something coming up in your current relationships that stems from the past. And so when we're unable to name and to feel anger, often that becomes an internal anger, like, that was so stupid of me, and that kind of thing. Displacement or safe target, I'm so mad at X, when really you're mad at Y. And this could be like political issues. That's a big one. People always talk about like these political issues when really they're mad about something else. It's just hard to direct their anger at the target that they want to like feel it in, or they're angry at a safer target rather than say an authority figure or something like that they're and of course all of that stems from past stuff coming up. So undoing, this wasn't my heart, I didn't mean it like that, which undoes consequences of action. So it's you're never able just to to hear another person, how they experience you, but instead you have to quickly like say, well, that wasn't my heart, or that wasn't my intention, or you're not really understanding me, instead of being able just to hear the person out. How did they experience you? Reverts to a childlike state instead of setting boundaries. Is regression. So internal is what we do inside, relational is what we do in relationships. And so caretaking, I'm the only one who can help you. It fosters dependence in others. So it's like you almost need others to be in a dependent situation. And so you rescue people from their pain, and you're keeping them in a place of need. Dependence, you always need someone else, kind of like to take responsibility for your actions. So you're always asking someone for advice, and then that way you have someone to blame if it goes wrong. You don't want to own your own decisions. I choose to. You'll always need somebody else, an authority figure, or somebody to, before you like act on what you're wanting to do. Victim, I can't because X did this to me, blames others instead of taking responsibility. Manipulation, I just need you to do this for me one more time. Chaotic, seeks dependence on others, but is disorganized, aimless, and impulsive. Passive aggressive, sure, I'll do that. But sabotage is due to feeling controlled. Histrionic, highly seductive and dependent, but despises seducible. This is often when we use relationships to, we're always using kind of like our romantic feelings for other people instead of feeling pain. Addictive or compulsive, substitute setting boundaries with activities or substances. So I put together some common Christian statements or beliefs that we believe that are actually character deficient statements of sin separation. So a common belief is that anger is ungodly, or we shouldn't feel angry as Christians, or if we're feeling anger as Christians, then we're not, something. And so, is there truth to this belief? I mean, feeling rage or feeling unregulated anger, being not able to feel and deal with anger can get pretty explosive and pretty intense. And so that's, definitely ungodly, to rage, malice, hatred, bitterness. And so we went, so feeling and dealing with anger is very powerful, and it doesn't lead to that. And so this belief will make it so that you can't grow in the character structure of separation. If you can't separate from others, it's hard to define yourself. It's hard to say no. You'll end up being a slave. This belief, love knows no boundaries, that's very boundary resistant statement, and you'll have a hard time when other people are different from you. What is true about the statement is love is freedom plus responsibility. So freedom is the ability to say no, so we can give a wholehearted yes. Responsibility in a relationship is the choice to say yes because you care about them, like you love them, so you choose to say yes. So so I think love is lots of love, lots of boundaries, because otherwise it's not true love. We're not really, a slave isn't really able to have freedom to actually love. Here's another one. If I stay full of Jesus, I'll never get burnt out, and I can serve anytime anyone asks me to serve. Yeah, no, I can serve anytime someone asks me to serve, that's not true. The idea that having our spiritual tank keeps our emotional tank full, that's also not true. We can be, our spiritual tank and our emotional tank are not the same thing. And so we need to have both filled up, and in that place of having both aspects filled up, it's we don't get burnt. Like burning out we really need to have freedom in order to stay, keep from being burnt out. Also, another deficient belief is I don't want to do anything. I only want God's will for my life, or I want life to be full of you, God, and none of me, or God told me to, or playing the God card. So some of these are. Let me start with the first one. I don't want anything. I only want God's will for my life. So these statements, what is true to this belief? Of course, we want to allow God to be our guidance, for Him to lead us and guide us, and He is the source of. We seek. The Bible verse says, don't say I'm in the future I'm going to do this. It says if the Lord will, I'm going to do this. So we're always connected, letting our spirit to connect to His spirit, and we're always seeking His guidance. We want to but even when we choose to make a decision, we want to own it. And so often playing the God card is like making God take responsibility for your decisions. But we want to seek the Lord, and God is part of the process. And whenever you're deciding to do something, He is in it. But we want to own our decisions, and that way we're not putting blame on God, or we're not putting blame on others, but we are taking responsibility for what we're choosing. All right. Thank you for joining me today. I hope this was helpful. Again, knowing where we're deficient empowers us to start seeking out what we need. And so I really recommend the book Boundaries, or Boundaries in Marriage. Those are some of the best books by Dr. Townsend and Henry Cloud. Those are some of the best books written on the character structure of separation. So I highly recommend that. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at characterformationcoaching at gmail.com. All right. I look forward to tuning in for next week. Bye-bye.